Alaska is a land of extremes, and the Alaska winter can be downright brutal. The Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities is tasked with maintaining the state's transportation system in this extreme and challenging environment. Whether it's a multi-lane urban highway in Anchorage or a lonely stretch of the Dalton Highway in the Arctic, winter highway and airport maintenance is a difficult and dangerous job. Hello, and welcome to this second in what we hope will be a long series of training DVDs produced by Statewide M&O and T2. In this DVD, we're going to feature probably the most versatile piece of equipment in our entire fleet, the high-speed snowplow. In this DVD, we want to give you an orientation and overview of this vital piece of equipment within our fleet. Whether it is the reversible or fixed plow for pushing snow off of the highway, or the belly blade for cutting ice, or the wing plow for pushing snow off the shoulders, or the sander for applying sand, salt, or chemicals to our roadway, the high-speed snowplow requires a great deal of skill to operate safely. We hope this DVD can be used to help you enhance your skills and maybe learn something new. And the most important thing we want you to get out of this DVD is to be able to operate your equipment more safely.
Now in our previous videos, we went through the walk around on our trucks. We've even covered the grader and the loader. But today what we want to do is focus a little more on the attachments. We think of our trucks and the things that we put on them, such as our front plows, our reversibles, underbody plows, wings. All of those things are really important to take care of and maintain. So what we're going to do is cover some of the more details of the walk around, not so much on the truck, but what we're going to check out on those attachments. How to adjust, what to plan for, what to look for as we go out, before we go out on the road, and then the safety aspects of things when we're out on the road. The obstacles that we face each and every day, whether it be a railroad crossing, signs, guardrails, all those things that we're going to be looking for and watching out for. So in the first part, we want to go through that walk around and look at things. But then we're going to go out on the road, and as we drive down the road, we'll talk about those objects and those things, obstacles that you guys face each and every day. Here we have our reversible snowplow. We're able to use this in multiple different types of snow plowing applications, being able to cast snow left and right. So what we want to do now is go over some of the detailed walk around and the things we want to do and check out before we go out on the road with it. So as we move over and try to start working on the reversible, the walk around, we're going to walk over to one side, start on one side in the back here. We'll look at how the frame mounted, all the bolts are tight, and there the pins hooking the plow to the frame. All of our hose fittings, they're tied up, out of the way, connections made strong, solid. We think of the ram, the chains, how they're attached, both ends. They're in good shape, not worn, ready to break in two. We think of the circle, the turn on this, the table, looking for cracks, breaks in that. We look at the rams and the pins on both of that. Looking for all those things that show wear and any sign of cracks and potentially something breaking out on the road and causing a lot more damage. We think of going up onto the, moving up on the plow. We think of the trip. These reversibles have a trip mechanism on them. You're looking for the spring. You're seeing if they're broken. The linkage that attaches it there. We have the skid shoes here. We're looking how much wear is on them, how much life is left on them. Look in the back of the plow, the welds, pins on there, and we're working our way out around to the front. So as we come around to the front, we want to make sure that our base of our plow is in good shape. We also want to come down, think of our snow flaps, make sure that that's in good order and being there. That helps from keeping as much snow flying up and over the plow. Also coming down to our cutting edges. We want to make sure that we have enough cutting edge to last the day. Also, we want to make sure that the bolts are all in place and tight. So we want to make sure that that's very critical for us to do. So as we go around the plow and we work our way around, we go do the same thing on the side, checking the other side for the same kind of defects and making sure everything's in working order before we go out on the road. Now we think about, after we get done with our walk around, we think about all the things that we run across out on the road, and with things that you guys as operators have to think about. We think about our speed in our plow. We think about the snow flying. Obviously, a lot of hazards there where we got a lot of snow, so traffic that we run across that are either behind us in basically whiteout conditions. We think of everything in front of us. We think of the obstacles that we run across or by, the railroad tracks. We know that we have the ends of the bridge that could be sticking up and catching our plows, so we really want to slow down for those. The expansion joints, that's a real concern that we have. Some of them have a fairly decent gap on them or raised up a little bit. Even our plow, if we have it at the perfect angle that matches right up with that expansion joint, can fall right in there and tear things up. So be real careful of those. We have narrow bridges. You have to think about the width. We think of signs, guardrails, whether it be manholes, curbs that we come across. Them are things that we've got to think about when we're out running this plow out on the road.
A lot of times at intersections we will slow way down because there's always going to be other people there, and we'll straight blade. We'll straighten our blade up instead of, so it'll carry whatever snow we have straight across the intersection, leaving as small of a berm as possible. And then once we get through the intersection, we'll bring it off to the right and getting rid of the snow there.
Well, when you come to a bridge or a railroad deck, you have to square your blade, because by squaring the blade, you're just carrying that snow across. We maintain those bridge decks in a separate procedure. Mostly we're carrying the equipment across the bridge deck and just trying to carry what snow the mow board will carry across that bridge deck.
Generally, because the nose plow throws snow so far, you raise the nose plow, you slow down to 2 or 3 miles an hour with a belly blade, because you can't push, you don't want to push the snow over the edge of the bridge deck, whether it's an overpass for a road underneath or it's a stream or a river. You don't want the sand and the contaminants on the road to go in the river, so you slow way down, and you don't use a nose plow. Generally, going across a bridge deck, you use only a belly blade.
Well, on curves, the traffic tends to go on the like if it curves to the right, they'll go farther to the right than the lanes are, and so the traffic will plow, or spread the snow, and so they'll be actually running on the shoulder. And so if you're doing a right-hand shoulder and you come up on a curve, you have to be aware that if you follow the snow, you're actually going to drive off the road. You have to hold to the shoulder that's actually there on around that curve, and then the snow will reappear after the curve when the cars go back out. And on the up side of like a right-hand corner, the left-hand side of a right-hand corner, the lane will be completely full of snow because the traffic's not up in it, and so the lanes will all be bunched down hillside, or the inside of a corner.
So now we have the one-way plow. Maybe not as versatile as some of our other attachments that we went through, but still very vital for our snow plowing operations. So let's go into the walk around. A lot of the same things as like on our reversible up in this area. We're worried about all of our hinge points, our pins secured, any cracks, any weld breaks, making sure that they're all secured. The big difference that we see on a one-way plow is the wheels that are on the one-way. We make sure that obviously that we have the air in the tires, they're aired up properly, bearings are good, and then also the wheel adjustment. We're going to make sure that we have enough down pressure on this to support the plow without wearing out the cutting edge too fast. So our one-way plow, out on the road, some of the things we want to watch for, because of this height of our one-way, a lot of things disappear a little sooner into our field of vision when we're operating it. So we've got to watch for, as we go by mailboxes, coming up on guardrails, anything that we're coming up onto, we have to watch for that and they kind of disappear. So being able to judge that and seeing that's really important for us. Also, same thing as the other ones, we come up onto obstacles as railroad tracks. We want to slow down for those, pick up, take a little weight off, move across, and then we can let it down and keep going. Expansion joints, same thing. Because of this fixed angle on the one-way, we've got to watch that sometimes some of our bridges Our expansion joints are at an angle, and we can actually fall down into those too, so we got to watch out for those.
Well, we have everything from stretches of road where nothing but mailboxes and driveways coming out, to plowing along a street that has a bunch of brand new cars right along it, you know. So everything, you know, conditions can change. Also, there's some places that you can't use a nose plow because it'll throw the snow so far, it will hit houses and stuff like that.
One approach to managing a drift is to plow the snow downwind, but you have traffic considerations. For example, on that road we did today, it's not used very much, so I could safely blow it downwind and leave a little bit in that lane, and cars could maneuver through that. On a 4-lane highway or a highway or a road with more traffic, then you may not have that luxury, and you just have to slow down. So you've got a lot of factors. You've got your own safety, because drifts can become very hard, especially if they've been blowing all night. They can become very hard, and you can damage equipment, or you can injure yourself and actually wreck your vehicle or your equipment, or you can be pushed into another car out of your normal lane. So you've got your own safety, you've got the safety of others. You can't, as always, you've got to be aware of what traffic behind you and oncoming traffic and what you're going to be doing with that snow, because in drifting areas you've got the wind and where it's going to blow the snow also. And then in the back of your mind you're trying to think of how to manage the snow too, which way to plow it so that it doesn't continue to drift, or you can decrease the ammunition is basically what it turns out to be, the amount of snow that can be windblown in the drift. So those are some of the considerations for dealing with drifts.
So here's another versatile attachment that we have, the underbody plow, or as we always normally refer to it as a belly blade. This is another tool that we can use for multiple plowing applications, left or right, and also being able to cut a little more of our snowpack, a little better than some of our front plows. So let's go through a little more detailed walk around with it. Things we want to check for under the belly blade. The rams, both ends, the hinge points. Big thing that we always want to do with the belly blade is making sure that we get it properly greased. We want to make sure that all the hinge points, all the grease zerks are caught. That helps us look at all the other things. Lots of hoses, attachments underneath here, good time to look at those. We think of the back side of the blade, the hinges, making sure all the bolts are tight. Good time to look at the back and the bottom of the mow board to make sure that all the bolts are securely fastened, holding onto that cutting edge. We have the face, make sure all the bolts are in and secure on the face side here. We think too of making sure we have enough blade to make it through the shift. Also, really important is to look up underneath the frame where it's all mounted to the truck, where it goes up and down. Lots of things happening in here, and so we've had the belly blades, the brackets where they mount to the frame have broken in the past, so that's something you guys really need to check and monitor, and again, make sure that we get the belly blades well greased. Behind the hydraulic control box, we have the upper end of the belly blade ram. Make sure those pins are in and hooked and fastened properly. Look too at the slides. On each side of the frame there's these slides. We want to make sure the slides are in there and attached and wearing properly. So as we move on to the passenger side or right hand side of the belly blade, we'll do some checks on this side. We're moving into the upper part. We're going to take this upper ram, make sure the pin is in there and properly secured. Making sure, again, we want to make sure everything's getting greased. We think of the slides, again, making sure both of those slides are fixed and then wearing properly, and then we'll move down here down below. So we come in underneath, looking back at the circle turn ram, making sure that that is bolted and secured properly, the hoses are attached. We come up here to the hinge point, very critical point on the belly blade. This last winter we've had some failures in this area, breaking over the winter, so very important to look for cracks and breaks here. Again, lots of grease zerks, pins in place, secure, going forward, everything looks good. Coming to the circle turn here, plates in place, bolts tight. Coming back here, ram held secure, hose fittings are secure. Coming forward to the hinge pin here, bolts are all in good place. Back side of the blade, same thing, the lower end of the ram is in place. Bolts are secure. Again, we're looking at the end of the blade for cutting edge wear, making sure we have enough for them to make it through the day, and that will take care of our walk around for our belly blade. Some of the things we have to watch for out on the road with our belly blade, kind of like our front plow, we need to watch for the railroad tracks, bridge embutments, and expansion joints, same thing. We want to slow down for those, be careful, ease over those, because we can definitely catch those and damage both those obstacles along with damage to our own blade. Also, we know that we have to do a lot of turning around and going down the road, so when we do want to turn around, we have to make sure that before we back up, we pick our belly blade up before we back up so we don't harm anything there. Watching out for width. The belly blades are harder for us to see when we're sitting up in the cab, so we're having to think about what we're going by that we don't catch on either side of our belly blade. Traffic, same thing, we're oversized with our belly blades, so we're having to be careful when we go through traffic.
And the most important thing is traffic, especially when you're coming up to the highway on an on-ramp. If you're throwing snow to the left, you have to make sure that you change your blade angle before you get to the highway, because the snow is going to throw it out into traffic. If you're in a plow team, the second vehicle in the team will pick up your over spray and throw it over to the third driver if there's a third driver. And but you always have to be aware of vehicles. That's vehicles and pedestrians. They're hard to see sometimes, especially pedestrians. And all three drivers in a plow team will call out pedestrians as they see them, and vehicles that may cut in front of one vehicle or another vehicle. We'll call that out on the radio, so everybody in the team is aware of it. We've come across bicyclists in the middle of snowstorms that are hard to see. We'll call that out. Any kind of an obstacle at all, we'll call it out on the radio. Slow down. If it means raising the blades, both the belly blade and the nose plow or one or the other, we'll do that to avoid an issue, any kind of a safety issue. If it's the primary thing is safety first, and if we've got to go make another lap to pick up something, if we had to raise the blade, then that's what we'll do, so be it. But the primary concern is safety for not only ourselves, but the public as well.
So now we have the wing, very useful tool and attachment that we have on some of our trucks. In addition to our one-ways plows, can also add the width to our road. We can use it for benching and winging along the roads. So let's go into a little in-depth walk around with it. As we move into the post, we want to make sure that it's secured to the frame, making sure all the pins are in place. Again, grease all the grease zerks that you can on it. Make sure that the kingpin onto holding the blade onto the end of the post. We have the end of the ram. Make sure, again, all the pins are in place. Obviously, we're looking for damage or things that need to be repaired. Obviously, on this one, on cue, we have some wires ripped off that we have a beacon on the end of our wing, so we want to make sure that gets over the shop and get those repairs done before we leave the yard. We're looking at the face of the mow board. Again, cutting edge, make sure that we have plenty of cutting edge for the day. Pins and bolts are secured on that. So we have the beacon. After we get that wire fixed, our beacon will work out here. This is really good when it's down, that traffic can see this wing sticking out here, because we've had cars come up on our blind side and run into these wings. So really nice tool to have. We're working in the back, any frame, anything broken, cracked. Got our hinge pins here for our ram, make sure those are in place. All the hydraulic hoses and fittings are in place, going, and so we don't have anything pinched. We want to make sure that this wing can go up and down without having any of the hoses get pinched and break. When we move to the rear post here, see that they have that, pins in place, secured. Right here we have the spring and the shear pin here. The spring here is to be able to take up the shock of the blade, so we want to make sure the spring is in place and the shear pin to be able to do that. We go on up the post. We see the end here again pinned and secured, mounted onto the frame of the truck. Make sure those bolts are in place and secured. Looking back in there that everything looks in good shape there. Any cracks or breaks, really important for us to watch for. And then we have our wing is ready to go, and we're able to go out and wing on the road. So our wing attachment, very handy to have, but also out on the road we got to think of all the things that we got to worry about out on the road. Not only is it hard for us as an operator to see their wing and being able to do the work, but also we got to think about traffic, worrying about traffic come up behind us and trying to pass us on the blind side, but also as we come up to the obstacles out on the road, such as guardrails. We have to be aware of that width, bridges, any other obstacle that's along the shoulder. We've got to know where that wing is and where it's sticking out. So really something that can be handy, but also something that really takes a lot of being aware of our surroundings, because a lot of damage can be created because of this wing.
Well, the main thing is a lot of people don't understand that with these large trucks, the optimum speed for when we're plowing snow is around 35 miles an hour, which is what we've found with our trucks and wings and nose plows, that everything works the best at around 35. So you get a lot of people backed up behind you, they get impatient, they want to pass you, and you just have to at all times watch what the traffic is doing oncoming and backed up behind you. And in multi-lane roads, it gets real interesting sometimes where you get people passing other people, passing you at the same time. Also, a lot of people in the snow dust that's behind you, you're creating, if there's a lane to the right of you and you're plowing with the wing down, a lot of motorists have no idea that wing is out there and they will try to pass you on the right. So you always got to be ready for that and to take evasive action, which usually means either going over to that right-hand lane or lifting the wing up completely to keep from avoiding an accident. You always have to have your head on a swivel and watch everything that's going on around you at all times when you're operating a large truck like this with all the attachments on it. You have a lot of things going on with the wing and the blade when you're moving the snow. You have to be aware that a lot of times when the snow's on the road, you can't tell where the center line of the road is, and you have to stay on your side of the road. And it's just all in the knack of learning where your vehicle is and using it to its full extent. And then obstacles you have to look out for is road signs, ditches, bridges. When you come up to bridges, in our section we have narrow bridges, so a lot of times if we're meeting oncoming traffic, we have to raise the wing up well ahead, and that's a timing thing that you learn operating a piece of equipment, that you must raise that wing well ahead of getting to the bridge, because there's not enough room for you in oncoming traffic if that wing's down.
In DOT, there's many pieces of important equipment, and one of the most important pieces of equipment is the sander. The sander is out there basically to provide safe travel for those in the public on our highways and road systems. Its basic duty is to spread gravel or other material to provide the traction needed for those that are traveling on our roadways. It takes care of our intersections, hills, and stops, and many other places. As we finish our truck inspection, we walk around to the back here and take a look at our sander. We want to make sure our hoses are all proper condition, there's no leaks, no cracks, and make sure they're all in place. We check our signs, make sure it's clean. We check our lights, make sure they're clean and in working condition. We also want to check out our spinner and our flaps to make sure everything's there and intact. One of the main things we check is our gate opening, make sure it's set at the proper size. It depends on what material we're spreading at that time on the highway. Our material is also adjusted by our feed rate and our spinner rate inside, so it's very important that we get the right amount coming out so we don't spread too far into traffic. One of the basic things that you need to watch for is your speed. You want to be able to keep your speed low enough where your material is not spreading all over and damaging anything around you. Another thing that we watch out for is the traffic when it's approaching us or behind us. As it's approaching us, we see way in advance that we should shut off our sander to make sure it's completely stopped and that all our material has fallen on the ground before we pass that vehicle. And as somebody's approaching us from behind, we make sure that we shut off, that they're not too close where they won't be damaged by any of the material also.
This is a sand truck we use at Anchorage International. It's equipped with two 75-gallon liquid de-icer tanks. We use this sand on all pavement surfaces here at the airport. The purpose of the liquid de-icer is to, one, make the sand heavier, makes it less susceptible to wind, and more adhesive to the surface that it hits and gives it a more consistent pattern. The liquid de-icer also reduces the temperature at which ice melts. With the chemical applied with the sand, it embeds in the ice that may be on the asphalt at the time and produces like a sandpaper effect and increases braking action for the planes.
Some of the key safeties that I look for is, of course, the driving conditions, being aware of what's going around you, especially with the weather, and then also the traffic for the people, on what decisions they're making, being prepared for anything unexpected, just making sure the proper signals are used, doing the right speed for anything that can happen unexpected, or, as far as people, pedestrians that you don't see until the last minute, or animals, moose, sometimes they'll jump out of nowhere. So yeah, it's just good to be aware of all that.
In a plow truck, you always have to be aware. You can't be daydreaming. You have to be aware of what you're doing. You have to have your game face on, because it's a very expensive piece of equipment. You have your own safety considerations, but especially in an urban area, these trucks are wonderful tools. And the plows especially have the capability of moving a lot of snow and pushing it and blowing it a long ways off the road. But at the same time, that can be a double-edged sword, because if you have someone walking over there, or someone parked their car, or a business may have their sign, your own crosswalks have the buttons that you push to change the lights to allow someone to cross. Traffic signals, electrical boxes, you have to be careful where you're throwing that snow at all times, both from a safety standpoint and from an equipment standpoint.
The most important information I would give a new operator is not so much any specific thing to be aware of, but to listen to senior operators, to take advice from senior operators, and to not be hesitant to ask questions when something, occurs to you that, hey, what do I do if? Never be afraid to ask an experienced operator how you should or shouldn't do things, and follow a good example.
It's not something that has to be done fast. Slow down, keep your wits about you, watch the public. Speed, when you're plowing, speed's your enemy. Yeah, just slow down. I would tell anybody that's just coming into this, the best thing you can do is just go slow, take your time, think, and safety is the absolute most critical issue. Not only for yourself, but your fellow workers that are working with you, as well as the public.
As operators, walk-arounds are crucial to everyday operations. Coming up with a checklist for your truck and the attachments that you will be using will help guide you through these inspections. Make sure that the lights and strobes are working properly, bolts are tightly fastened, pins are attached and secure, and looking for loose and broken parts are all good examples for your walk-around checklist. Your trucks are unique with many different components, so it's vital that you make sure all proper adjustments are made before heading out onto the roadways. To avoid any delays in your snow removal operations, it is critical that you as operators service and maintain your fleet of trucks. We hope this video will provide you important information that will allow you to perform the task of keeping your highways and roads clear, enabling motorists safe travel. Always keep in mind the safe aspect of your job while tackling Alaska's treacherous winter weather conditions each and every day. As operators, the most important thing is your safety and the safety of the general public. We thank you for watching this presentation. Have a great day, but more importantly, drive safe.